What we actually have is a tool that's just using large language models to review documents, review and classify and summarize documents. So in an e-discovery framework where you have a large volume of documents that you need to review, and we're using contract attorneys to go through them now, AI can read the document, determine whether it's relevant to whatever issues you're looking for, summarize the document if you need it to, and be able to basically clear through a large corpus of data, review everything, and determine what's relevant and important to your case, either to produce to an opposing party or to use yourself for, to understand your issues, your case, your arguments, prepare for depositions and all that. So we really just have a custom use of large language models for review, summarizing, classifying documents.
Welcome to the Real Estate Law Podcast. Jason Muth here with Prowess Stays and Straightforward Short-Term Rentals. Our resident attorney, Rory Gill, is here. Rory, we are digging into a legal topic today.
We are, and for my fellow attorneys out there, this is a topic that I've heard discussed before, and it falls along two lines. Either this AI technology is here to replace us and to put us in the unemployment lines, or it's here to save us from some of the drudgery of our work. I'm in the latter camp, especially since I just spent the last couple hours going through and pouring through a bunch of trust documents manually. So I would welcome any assistance to take that off my plate so that I can focus on actually working with my clients.
Let's welcome the founder of ediscovery AI. This is Jim Sullivan coming to us from outside Minneapolis. And I hope that, Jim, you're not here to put us all out of business, are you?
I don't think so. I think it's, like Rory said, just, helping you do your job a little better, helping you focus on the things you like. I mean, it's a lot of the manual tasks, the menial things that we all hate doing anyway. But with that, probably remove some of the billable hours from those menial tasks. But still, overall, I think everyone we've talked to, kind of happy with that ability to not have to spend a lot of time pouring through endless documents.
It's interesting as technology allows us to help us with our lives and offshoring things for many people, whether you're working with a virtual assistant or a local assistant or using AI to do your tasks a little bit more efficiently. You just touched upon something about billing hours right there. And not every billable hour probably is worth the same amount of money. I mean, if you're going to pay an attorney to draft documents versus appear in court or something else, those things in theory could have a different rate, but right now it's all being billed at a similar rate, I think. And I think that you're here to help, streamline that process a little bit more.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good point because there are all sorts of different levels of work, all sorts of different, skills needed for each of them. And for the most part, AI is kind of, more of that assistant, that paralegal, that helper that gets you where you're going. But it's really important that we're still treating attorneys as the professionals that are responsible for doing the work, responsible for standing behind the work and really validating that everything is correct and true. And I'm sure we'll get into a little bit more about what we mean by that. But that piece is, it's still your work, and I think that that's important for everyone to understand that the person responsible for the work product is the attorney, as always.
Yeah, before we, jump too far along and talk about the ultimate implications and strategies that attorneys can adopt with the technology, I want to start with something just awfully basic because not everybody understands it. Not everybody understands it correctly. Could you define, what AI is and maybe explain what it looks like in the law firm context?
Sure. And, I'll say that, the term AI is very broad, it refers to a lot of different forms of machine learning or ways that computers are helping. And what we're really seeing today that's different from what we saw in the past and the big game changer is really just the, introduction of large language models as a form of AI that, in my opinion, the real differentiator is its ability to understand natural language and be able to answer questions without training in a way that has just, it now gives us the ability to do things that we could never do before with any of those other AI models. So, we've had AI in the past, it's a tool that's been around in law for a long time, but LLMs are just a complete game changer in the AI space. So, basically for what we're talking about and for what most of the time, we're really referring to it with AIs, it's pretty much, your chat GPT where you can ask questions in real language and it can answer them about any topic, about anything at any time. Just really incredible. That's something that's just nothing, like we've ever seen before.
Jim, what's your background? Are you an attorney, or did you work in the legal profession? Did you come from the tech side? A little bit of both?
I am an attorney. I'm licensed. I'm not really, I'd say, practicing as much as a tech nerd, but I do have I have a computer science and math degree as well. So it really, not a lot of people in law school had technical degrees, so a little bit more rare than a lot, but really great mix for this industry for sure.
And how much are they training new attorneys on AI tools these days?
Well, I mean, with large language models being so new, I think we're all sort of trying to figure it out still. I mean, it's been about a year and a half since, ChatGPT was introduced and really opened the door for a lot of things that we're now playing with. And attorneys are notoriously conservative in their approach to just about everything. So, a lot of the bigger firms, will be blocking the use of AI for a lot of uses until they can kind of figure out what they're going to use it for and what the allowed uses are. There are, some concerns about the security and privacy of data with different implementations, and it's not a problem that's really an issue that we can't solve as much as just the wanting to sort out how it's going to be used before jumping into anything is what we're seeing from a lot of attorneys, especially the larger firms, the big players that are really taking it safe and trying to be meticulous. We are seeing a lot more creative approaches out of the smaller firms, the smaller attorneys that are a little bit more willing to take different approaches without having to have a firm-wide policy to support it.
Rory, how are you using AI in your legal world? Contrary to what many people believe, I have no idea what you're doing legally every day and don't even know who your clients are, including friends of ours, where they are convinced that like I know exactly what's going on with their stuff when they're working with you. And I'm like, I didn't even know that you called them.
Yeah, I feel like I'm a few steps behind. I mean, I've always thought of myself as a fairly tech forward, small practice attorney, where I use automation tools, but they weren't really artificial intelligence based or automatic or intelligent in any capacity. But I've had document templates that can generate more or less automatically. I have different software that I can use to kind of keep track of cases and keep everybody informed and keep organized. But that's not AI. But I'm interested in it to springboard from this, where I kind of take these tools that can get me 80% of the way there, and then I have to add on a layer of my own review and my own attention just to make sure that everything that my systems are putting out there are correct and accurate. And I'd imagine that that's going to be pretty true for the adoption of AI tools. Ultimately, it's the attorney's responsibility to make sure that the tools are performing correctly, and that they're taking that good look at their own work product.
So Jim, someone like Rory that might contact you, knowing that that's kind of where he is with the use of AI or lack thereof, what's a good starting point?
I mean, the perfect starting point for anyone is jump on ChatGPT, start asking questions, start asking it what it can do. My favorite thing, when we got started, the first thing I did was my kid just absolutely loved it. So we would have it create a story, write a story about a 9-year-old girl who saves the world from monsters and dragons and rides unicorns. And it has the ability to create really creative stories really quickly and allow you to have, basically story time with your kids. And then in addition to that, she loves the ability to create artwork. I can say, draw me a picture of a cat riding a dolphin, any random thing where she just, you can also create coloring books and things. So, for us, it was just great because she loved being able to see what it could do. But what we're doing here is learning, basically how you input requests and what types of responses you get back. And you're learning what types of things it can do and what types of things it can't do. And that's the really important thing, and just understanding how it can answer questions and solve problems, because then you can start thinking about how it's going to solve problems in your case. Perfect scenario I would describe for anyone in a situation like this is have it draft documents for you. Say, hey, I'm creating a contract about X, Y, and Z. Write up a draft for me. I'm writing a brief about this. Give me arguments that I should make. Just use it as a brainstorming tool that you can just get ideas. I mean, I use it for generating ideas for blogs, generating ideas for even domain names if you're starting a new company. So as an attorney, I would absolutely say you're writing a brief. Describe what you want the brief to be, and have AI write the brief for you. Have it write your contracts. Have it write everything. But now you're not relying on that. You are not just turning in the paper that AI wrote for you. You are now taking that as your starting point, and it's getting you that 90% of the way there, that now you can go through it and you can modify it and you can edit it and you can make sure that you put on all the finishing touches. And ultimately, you are responsible for the work product. It's really not a lot different than, basically Googling different clauses for contracts or things, where now you're getting that starting point where then you're using that logic or language in something that you're creating. But you're still the one responsible for the work. You're still the one that's creating it. You're just using it to either get you started, create a draft, brainstorm ideas, and do other things that then you can use to just make your job better. But that's one of the things we always hear about, how people are concerned about hallucinations or AI creating things that isn't real or saying things that aren't true. And it's, the question I say is, were you intending on turning this in without looking at it? I mean, the idea is that it is going to draft some ideas and framework for a contract or for a brief or for any arguments. And now you can now decide whether that's something that you read and use yourself, modify, or determine whether it's not quite what you want to go with. But you're never necessarily relying on it, and you're always doing the step to validate it and basically make it your work before it ever gets submitted or used in any case.
Within the past few weeks, a non-attorney friend of mine, for just a legal issue that he was working on, actually went to ChatGPT to generate a legal document, and he showed it to me afterward, and we kind of used it as a starting point. But I looked at it and I was both amazed at the work product that it could produce, but also a little bit horrified at the consequences for somebody if they just took that and handed it into our district court. It lacked a couple of things that I would include in any Massachusetts filing. It lacked the formatting was kind of off from how the judges want to see it. So the value of the attorney is certainly still there, because reviewing these documents, maybe it creates a nice starting point. Maybe it allows us to offer less involved or less expensive services to clients if we can use these as a starting point. But you definitely can't just take what's given out of it. Nothing in there was incorrect, but it just lacked a lot of the things that I would include in most filings.
No, and that's exactly what it is. And I think that if you see it that way and realize that this is something that will get you to a starting point that you can work with, that's the approach that's going to work really well. If you take it as this is going to just replace my need to do any work, and really probably the biggest risk I see are people who are non-attorneys that have it create content that then they use because they don't really know that it's wrong about certain things or it's missing certain things. So that is a legitimate risk that I could see. But from an attorney standpoint, you're still taking that step to make sure everything's right. It includes everything you need. It doesn't include anything you don't need. It doesn't include anything that's untrue. And if there's any citations, you're reviewing them and making sure they're legitimate.
So Jim, how does ediscovery AI work with ChatGPT? Like, how are these two different?
So what we actually have is a tool that's just using large language models to review documents, review and classify and summarize documents. So in an e-discovery framework where you have a large volume of documents that you need to review, and we're using contract attorneys to go through them now, AI can read the document, determine whether it's relevant to whatever issues you're looking for, summarize the document if you need it to, and be able to basically clear through a large corpus of data, review everything, and determine what's relevant and important to your case, either to produce to an opposing party or to use yourself for, to understand your issues, your case, your arguments, prepare for depositions and all that. So we really just have a custom use of large language models for review, summarizing, classifying documents. And there are a lot of other tools out there that are, AI tools in the legal industry. And, they're not all, I don't want to say they're not all the same as much as they're not all solving the same types of problems. There's some tools will use large language models to help you draft contracts. Some will help organize your contracts. Some will actually, write briefs and create things. Some will answer questions about a data set. So you can have a large data set and you can say, who is the vice president of this company? And if the answer's in that data set, it'll be able to tell you. And ours is focused on reviews. So when we talk about all of the different use cases and break down all the different things that it can do, there's just a lot of different tools that are customized. And there's not just a one size fits all. We're using AI in the legal industry as much as we're using AI to solve this particular problem in the legal industry. And the problem we're trying to solve is the doc review and classification, which is just a really, really expensive piece of e-discovery.
Rory, talk about what document review means, like to the layperson like me.
So in the context of discovery, going back, I did this once as a contracted attorney when I first started out, and it is the most tedious job I think I've ever had. And that is going through tons of PDFs and basically selecting the ones that either discuss a certain topic, make a certain reference, and then sorting them in ways so that the opposing counsel can go through them and, you know, in turn use them as evidence if they have to. But really, it's a way to like quickly lose your vision staring at a computer screen, watching PDFs go by, and selecting the ones that mention these lists of topics that might be relevant to the case.
And I swear the first thing I did right out of law school is the exact same thing. Doc review is kind of like that launching point where everyone does it as a way of, you know, having a job out of law school, but while you're doing it, you're searching for other jobs. No one comes out of law school saying that doc review is what I want to do, because it's sitting and staring at a screen and reviewing document by document by document all day, every day is just not something that humans are really good at. I mean, this is the type of task, and this is why we approach this specific task, is because this is the type of task that computers are just going to always beat humans on. I mean, not always, but going forward, it's absolutely always going to beat humans on now. I have never reviewed a set of documents and had AI review the same set of documents and had a more accurate classification than the AI did. We tested on all sorts of data sets. I've collected my own data from years and years of emails that I've sent out at different businesses and doing things, and I've reviewed them for different topics, and I've had AI review the same documents, and the AI finds more relevant documents and better documents than I do every single time. I look at documents that I said were not relevant and AI said were relevant, and I look at them and I realize that I was wrong every single time. And what it's doing is I'm looking, you know, I have 5 documents that it disagreed on, and I look and I say, AI got that one right, AI got that one right. And then the second I think I got something right, I'll read the explanation for why AI made the decision, and I'll look back at the document and I'll realize I was wrong again. So you know, when we talk about all the different things attorneys do with regards to even litigation and even doc review where they're preparing their case and they're doing things, that job of simply looking at a document and classifying it to determine whether it's relevant to different issues, that's the job that just humans don't have any business doing in the future. It's just, it's a straightforward task that computers are exceptional at.
Right, but the human attorney at all those cases is able to use the AI tools because they're able to formulate the right question to put into AI. And that I think is going to be part of the talent going forward, is learning how to use this technology, but knowing how to ask the right questions. If you pitch the task to AI to go through the documents and your request was not well formulated, you would have had an outcome that would have been much worse than a human attorney going through all the documents.
Yeah, you get what you ask for, and sometimes you ask for things that aren't quite the same as what you wanted. But that gets back to if you can have AI draw a picture of a cat jumping over a rainbow riding a dolphin for your kid, and you can start seeing how it responds to different things, that's the type of thing that now you can understand how it's going to respond to your request when you're describing what types of documents you want. So that, you know, kind of when you get to, you know, what skills do you need to learn, that's it. Understand how you formulate a request to the AI, and what types of responses it's going to get back, and the types of things it's able to understand and what types of things it's not able to understand. That's the thing that I think once you grasp that, it really opens the door to a lot of different use cases, a lot of different solutions that you can help save a lot of time and energy on.
Part of the value of attorneys is being able to interpret information. You know, I'll ask Rory questions all the time that I don't understand what this contract says or what this point says. And even if I threw it into an AI, you know, chat GPT model or into any other model, and ask the right question, I might get back an outcome that I still don't understand the answer to that. And, so this is why I don't think this is going to completely replace attorneys. I think part of what attorneys are really good at is understanding the law and wherever they specialize and putting it into human words in front of somebody, because we all inherently still like to talk to people that we know, like, and trust. And if an attorney can say, okay, let me take a look at that document and that specific, in a real estate case, land use, for example, let me look at this, let me look at what the law says, and here's what this physically means in human terms that you understand. Right. I don't think we're ever going to get there with ChatGPT replacing attorneys to be able to do that, because I might ask the AI model that same question and still not understand what they said. So I think that's the sales part of it, the consultation part of it. That's part of why attorneys are going to continue having jobs for many years and decades to come. With that said, let's talk about a couple specific instances as to how ediscovery AI can help out in the real estate world, because we are the Real Estate Law Podcast, so we specialize in topics that are connected to growing a real estate business, commercial real estate, making money off of real estate, and attorneys practicing real estate law. So, what are some ways that you found some of your real estate clients have helped use your models?
Yeah. So, anytime there's doc review, anytime there's reviewing contracts, trying to classify what's related to what, that's the low-hanging fruit. That's really what we specialize in. But there's a lot of other use cases that can work well for document analysis. One thing we're doing is extracting information from documents. So if you have a collection of, a bunch of contracts and you want to determine what parties were involved in each contract. One thing that we did that was interesting is we went through a large volume of contracts and we extracted what parties were involved with each contract, the dates on the contracts, and then different clauses for, what state law, dictated the contract, what clauses were in each of the contracts, just to kind of help them organize their contract set a little bit more. The other thing that I can think of with real estate is the ability to review images might be something that could be helpful. Where if you have a collection of images, whether it's, rentals and you're looking at things with damage or, identifying anything in an image, that's something that's really powerful. We are working with some construction companies to, look at images and identify whether or not there's water damage or whether there's certain, issues present or not present. So that's something I could think of as maybe a unique use case for, the real estate world, where you're basically reviewing and analyzing images, identifying how many people are in this image, different characteristics we can even extract. So that's something I could think of. But for our tool especially, I think that the reviewing, classifying, and extracting from either contracts or documents or emails or PDFs, that's probably the best use case for it in a real estate world. But like I said, there's just so many other great use cases that are a little bit outside of what we're doing that I think would be absolutely perfect for real estate professionals.
And what's your business model with ediscovery AI? How are you guys making money?
So the one big thing, as Rory knows, where everyone starts out doing doc review, the amount of money that goes into doc review is very, very significant. 70% of all ediscovery costs are related to the costs of human document review. So what we are doing is we're partnering with essentially companies that provide doc review services and working with them to now offer AI as a replacement for that doc review service. So what we're trying to do is basically allow and we're starting out in the easier use cases on first level relevancy review, where we're just looking at documents, determining, is this relevant to our case or is it not relevant to our case? And even identifying personal content, social security numbers, PII detection, all of that. Just is that's such a great use case, and there's just so much money being spent on human doc review, and the issues with human doc review where it's slow, it's expensive, and it's not very accurate. And we can speed it up by making it way faster, way more accurate, and way less expensive. So ultimately, it's partnering with those companies that are already performing doc review services, or law firms that are already performing doc review services, and then having AI as a replacement for some of the problems they're trying to solve, or some of the things that they may have used humans for in the past. But it's certainly not just completely everyone gets kicked out and gets replaced by robots today, as much as using it to solve the simpler use cases where humans aren't necessary.
Thinking of the firms that are first adopters of this technology, what innovations have they made in their practice, whether it's the price point for their clients, whether it's maybe scrapping the billable hour altogether and replacing it with something that's a flat fee or subscription-based pricing? Have you seen innovations among the people who adopt the technology?
We're seeing with the large companies, they're taking a really meticulous approach to adoption, where they are forming internal basically AI expert panels, where then they're reviewing all the different use cases, determining what use cases are appropriate for their firm, and then starting to put together policies towards adoption. And we're seeing some of them are been doing this for the last 6 months, maybe even 12 months, where they're just laying out that roadmap for how they're going to implement it and how they're going to roll it out for the rest of their firm. For smaller firms that kind of have a little less of a rigid structure where you can kind of do more of what you want, we're seeing just people take creative approaches to jumping in and having it answering questions. I mean, I'd say that most of the smaller firms that I'm talking to are using it, either using ChatGPT to create drafts and sort of, or even just take a look at a contract and summarize it, or look for errors or things like that, which you definitely want to be careful. If you're using ChatGPT, you always want to make sure that you're turning off the settings where it's using your data to train anything. If you're using it in a legal context, that's something that's really important. You should never use Gemini. I'm not sure if using Claude is even appropriate, but the security aspect has to be known. But those smaller firms are definitely being a lot more creative in the use, and they're seeing a lot more benefit out of it, in my opinion, where they're using it to do a lot of that traditional paralegal work, and saving a ton of time and money on it. I don't have a lot of insight as to how they're then working the relationship with their clients to see if it's changing how they're billing or changing their structure in that regard. But it's certainly changing their day-to-day life and how they're working through problems.
Rory, I guess I don't have to ask my bonus question of how are you using AI, to further your business, which I've asked in a lot of recent podcasts, because that's exactly what this whole episode is about. So instead, before we get to our final couple questions, I'll say, Rory, do you have any final thoughts for Jim?
I mean, going to kind of my last question, I see this as a big opportunity for a lot of those more agile, smaller firms who are willing to take some risks, not with their client data, but risks with how they operate and do their business, because I think there are opportunities to innovate in terms of the offerings that they have to their clients, the prices that they charge for it, and everything. It's when we talk about this in some context, it's a difficult story, or we think that our job is being replaced. But that's not what we heard at all in this episode of the podcast. And I think there are opportunities for those out there who are operating small businesses to really embrace it, and to innovate what they provide their own clients.
Absolutely. That's the thing that I see with this is, in my opinion, this is the biggest change that we've seen since the internet, if not bigger. And you look at all the people that were early adopters of internets and building their companies around it, really got a big head start, and were able to compete with much larger organizations. And we're seeing that with our partners, where some of our partners are smaller vendors where they were running 5-person doc reviews, 10-person doc reviews, where now they can compete on a doc review that would require 100 people, because they can do it with AI and they can do it all faster. So it really levels the playing field, and I just don't see any reason why you wouldn't be moving towards adoption or putting together strategies for how you're going to move towards adoption, because it's the future, and this is kind of a race to see who can do things best, and it gives you an opportunity to really grow a lot quicker and do things that you couldn't do before, and take advantage of this while everyone else is kind of figuring it out still, or maybe even not even looking.
And just realize that technology, as fast as it is, humans move slowly through it. I just had a call with a client and he couldn't figure out the audio settings on a Zoom meeting. We're still there with a lot of people. So, if you're listening to this thinking that AI is going to completely remove you from being able to earn some money, instead figure out a way to actually use AI to your advantage. And all the people that aren't using it, because there's probably a lot more people that are not using this than are using it. this can give you a leg up on a lot of those folks as you continue building your practice. If you're a real estate professional, if you're a real estate investor, or if you're a real estate attorney. So Jim, why don't we ask our final couple questions that we ask all of our guests, just to wrap the interview up and learn a little bit more about you. First of which is, if you can get on stage for a half an hour and talk about any subject in the world with zero preparation, what would that be?
I mean, it's probably going to be AI and doc review, which it is interesting with we talk about my skill set and how fortunate everything lines up. Where I went to school for computer science and math, and then I went to law school, and then I got out of law school and did doc review. And then after I was done doing doc review, I actually worked at a vendor that did doc review, and all I did was using machine learning and other analytic strategies to make doc review more efficient. And then getting into this, it just is such a natural fit for me of all of the skills, that basically everything, it aligns with everything that I've done up to this point. So that's absolutely, the thing that I would talk about nonstop all day, every day. And, my wife hears about it way more than she should, but getting on, calls like this, at least I can get, talk about it a little bit and get some of it out so she doesn't have to hear nearly as much about it when I get home.
Just get it out of your system.
That's right. It's I say I have a Tesla, so I can make fun of Tesla fanboys, but it's like the Tesla people that just, they love Teslas and talk about them with everyone they encounter. I'm like that with AI, and man, I can get annoying if you are stuck with me too long, if that's all I talk about.
You have a Cybertruck? I
do not have a Cybertruck, and I am not super keen on the look of those, but I do have I've had a Tesla for a few years now, and their electric cars are just so much better than gas cars, in my opinion. It's not, there's a lot of weird arguments for and against different things and all of the political basis, but like just flat out, Teslas are super cool. It's super fast. Electric cars are better. I'm probably never going to buy a gas car again. And that has nothing to do with anything other than just thinking that they're cool and easy to drive.
I think they're cool too. I still have a gas car, and cars last so long these days that I still think we're a good 10, 15 years, if not longer, from the fleet of vehicles no longer being gas vehicles, if not more. I mean,
if you ban gas vehicles tomorrow, it'd take 30 years before you stop seeing that. I mean, like it takes a long time, and people are, that's just something that's going to take, really, really long time to move. But I will say that they just actually released a new self-driving feature. And they had a free, basically let everyone use it free for a month. And I'd used their full self-driving, when we were looking for a car and we didn't pay for the upgrade, and it wasn't usable. I mean, highway driving is great, but like in the city, it just flat out was not a tool that was usable. But when I used it, and I believe it was last month when they had this, it was absolutely incredible. I went 1 month where I didn't put my hand on the steering wheel to drive. It drove me everywhere. It did not have any issues. It would have blind stops, and it would stop and then creep up slowly to make sure everything was fine. It would go through roundabouts. It would go. So, from a tech standpoint, talk about really where I see a huge disruptor coming down the road is that ability to have cars drive themselves, which I until this last release last month, I just did not think we were at a point where that was going to be something that was in the immediate future, but I'm complete believer now. It handled every scenario that came up, except I think when it was raining so hard that I could barely see, that was probably the only time that it didn't fare well. But that was a really big eye-opening event for me.
I feel like for some reason there's like some schadenfreude involved with electric cars, where there was that Netflix movie that the world was ending and suddenly the electric cars were all driving toward the people that were trying to escape, and I thought that was amusing. And I've seen some Cybertrucks on beaches for some strange reason trying to get over beach dunes, and they can't make it, and I'm like, but I don't know. I have not switched over into the world of electric cars just yet.
It's weird because there's still some sort of feelings around it. I've driven, we have my parents live up in Upper Michigan, very rural area, and we've definitely got some comments from people that I was there, it was like, oh, that's cool, until they find out it's an electric car, and then it's like they're against it for some reason. And I mean, it goes 0 to 60 in like 3 seconds. My wife drives around, and like she races every teenage kid that's driving any sports car, and she's driving this, SUV with a kid in the back and just absolutely blowing them out of the water. And it's just flat out, they're cool, but people still have their perceptions around them, around what they are good or bad at. But I'll say that never will I, consider a gas car again. I mean,
well,
it's not.
being in your field also, I feel like it just falls hand in hand with what
It
you're
does.
working
Well,
on
and I
professionally.
will
Yeah.
say, biggest factor, the thing that twisted my or that did it for me was the ability to warm up your car in the garage without having to open up the garage door. So, I mean, in Minnesota, you drive around in the winter and everyone's got their garage door open with their car like half pulled out with just the butt sticking out, so they don't get the exhaust in their garage. And now you can just start your car, or you can just warm up your car with your phone with the garage door shut, and every time you get in it, it's perfectly warm. And in Minnesota, that matters. So that was the thing that did it for me, not having to run out in my pajamas and start the car and pull it halfway out the garage and then leave it running for 15 minutes. That's a game changer.
Right. Yeah, some of those temperatures in Minnesota, like we look at them in the Northeast and we're like, how do they do it? Like we get cold here, but like not like you guys get.
60 below is the coldest I've ever been in. And it's just, yeah. I ask myself why I live here a lot, but
we had wind chills in New Hampshire at our place a couple of years ago. Maybe it was last year, and the wind chills were like in the -30s or -40s, and like we legit heard the trees creaking and crying. Like we heard weeping from the trees that were just swaying. They were sad. So, okay.
rightfully so. I mean,
I'd be sad too.
outside.
Second question. Tell us something that happened early in your life or career that impacts the way that you're working today.
Wow, that's deep. A lot of it, probably I'd just say the first thing that comes to my mind is kind of how document review started, and how a lot of things you see things and you're like, there's got to be a better way to do this. My first project, I sit down and I kind of was looking around like, is this for real? Like we're really just flipping through one doc at a time. And at that time, there wasn't a lot of the efficiencies we're seeing now, where you're deduping things or you're calling out junk. Where, I mean, we had a team of 10 people that just reviewed error logs one by one that were all identical. And I just felt like this is not right. I mean, why are we charging a client to do this? This just doesn't make sense. So a lot of, the things that I've constantly seen and try to kind of be thinking of when we're working on stuff is just always trying to make things better, more efficient. Just because fundamentally it causes me pain to see when things are just so wildly inefficient when there's a better way to do it. So a lot of what I've been working on throughout my life has just been ways to make things that just don't seem like they should be done that way anymore, and try to push adoption of new technologies that allow us to do it better, faster, and cheaper. Because there's just, in the legal industry especially, there's just a lot of this is the way it's always been done mentality, and it can't believe it. I mean, there's been some things I just find shocking, but finding solutions to those types of problems is a lot of fun.
Final question. Tell us something you're listening to or watching or reading these days.
Oh, man. Well, I definitely have too much Taylor Swift on everything I do now with so I'll say that's the thing. I haven't been watching much TV other than I am a big Timberwolves fan, and so right now is about the only time in our life that Timberwolves have been good, and past the Kevin Garnett days. So last night win was relief, but so yes, I'll say I watch a lot of Timberwolves games and listen to way too much Taylor Swift.
Is the Western Conference Final still happening? I don't know. The Celtics.
We lost the first three, and we won last night, so it's 3-1. So we're still holding on, but I mean, honestly, just getting to the Western Conference Finals was enough. For me.
Well, but by the time this comes out, we'll have known who the NBA champion is. But at the time of recording, the Celtics are sitting back waiting to see if Minnesota can come back. I love honest answers like that. Rory, we ask that question of all of our guests, and I swear it's always like, oh, I'm reading this business book, Good to Great, or 10X is the new 2X, or Traction, or whatever. And you're just like, just give me a real honest answer. Like, yes, Taylor Swift and the Timberwolves. Like, that's legit what the answer should be for these questions. So,
I mean,
thank,
yeah, it is what it is. And I mean, I'll tell you, the only books I read are like programming books where I just like I it's like I need to learn this new language, or I want to learn to do a new thing, and then I just start to finish. But yeah, I can't I'm not on board with a lot of the philosophical
Jim, stop,
ideas.
stop while you're ahead. Like,
Fair.
you got an A+ there. All right. So if people want to learn more about eDiscovery AI and reach out to you, like, what should they do?
I mean, website, obviously, ediscovery.ai.com. You can schedule a demo right on that link. Basically, that's the best way. Get on a demo, ask some questions, see what we can offer, see, propose some of the problems you have, and see what we can do for, building solutions for any problems. Because frankly, I just love building cool stuff to solve problems. And that's what I like, talking to people about, hearing what types of problems they have, so then we can see what tools are now available that we can use to solve them. That's why we're here. That's what makes this fun.
All right. We'll put links to the show notes, or in the show notes, to your website and all places people can get a hold of you and learn more about that, book that demo. Hey, Rory, where can people get a hold of you?
You can either find me at my name, rorygill.com, or you can check me out at my law practice, Urban Village Legal, at urbanvillagelegal.com.
Okay. And if you want to be a guest on the podcast, please go to realestatepodcast.com and fill out our form. You can get all past episodes there and learn more about us and all the great guests that we've had, including Jim. If you enjoyed this episode, we'd love 5-star reviews. So we ask for the review, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever else you listen to this. We read all your comments on YouTube, and we really appreciate your support and listening. Hey, Jim, this has been a great, enlightening conversation. You've given us a lot to think about, and I'm sure that Rory and I will be talking about this a lot after we even stop recording this.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks, guys. And thank you for listening, and we'll see you next time.